Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Make Love Easy podcast. The mighty, the illustrious, the magical Michael Author is here with us today. Again,
Thanks for having me, Lewis.
you're welcome. So we're going to talk about a lot of things, but let's talk about you first. Like you want to throw your authority expertise hat into the ring real quick so people know who they're listening to.
Sure. So, hello, everyone. I'm Michael Author, and I'm a men and relationship coach. Um, I've gone through a number of different transformations over my career. I led a quote unquote sex cult for a few years. But for the most part, and I did a non-monogamy education business for a while, but for the most part, most of my work has been surrounding men, particularly in the realms of sexuality. And now I'm kind of moving into working with initiations.
Super cool. I took Michael's Depth Sexuality course and found it to be amazing, like illuminating. I'm still using the Kegels.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I like every day actually. I've been working out and I also Ayurvedic supplements, so I'm like really horny a lot. And then I find that I don't even have to do the microcosmic orbit. I can just
Mm.
bagel that energy diminishes or integrates or moves or whatever. And yeah, so highly recommend Depth Sexuality. But here today, we're here to talk about, at least at first, I get a sense we'll get this covered pretty quick and efficiently, is men in marriages that have lost the spark of intimacy. And this could be from the emotional or the sexual direction or both. Ideally, it'd be both that we address.
Usually it's
They're,
both.
they're intermingled, right? Everything is foreplay, including
Hmm.
how you feel about your partner. Like
Yep.
how would you go about resolving that? Or how have you with the men that you are working with? Yeah.
So let me be clear that for the most part, what I'm when I'm talking about this in the next few minutes, what I'm going to be talking about is men who have been married for 7+ years, as opposed to ones in newer marriages, because it's a different kettle of fish, so to speak.
Hmm.
So the sort of person that I'm talking about has been in a relationship usually since a relatively young age, like 30 at the oldest, oftentimes a lot earlier than that. Um, and they've been together for 10, usually 10+ years, and oftentimes the sex and intimacy has hit at some point, usually right after they have children, a steep decline with it's kind of like it goes like this and then drops off a cliff, and then they're at this base part and it's like down here, like swimming in a sine wave, never quite getting back up to where their sex life was before children. um, that's the primary group of people that I'll be talking about first.
Hmm.
Make sense? Okay.
And those principles, I'm sure, will extrapolate to some degree.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
So, you know, for many women, if not most, it's normal for there to be, and men too, really, a drastic shift in priorities once children enter the picture. First of all, they have to be breastfed, so there's the constant attachment, and it can be difficult to get time away for intimacy.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, the male partner sometimes can end up feeling somewhat resentful because he used to be a priority, but now the woman's priority has shifted to the children. And most men try to be understanding of that, but it's often just really difficult on everyone involved. And in order to navigate this shift in priorities, they usually fall into kind of a new normal, which involves, household chores, responsibilities. The man focuses on his work, and maybe they're able to get, steal an hour here or there. Um, but uh, yeah, it oftentimes ends up feeling relatively hopeless for the people involved, and can really tank the feeling of connectedness in a relationship. So the domesticity levels go up much higher, and the eros goes down much lower. That's the typical pattern. Um,
Is it my hypothesis is that there's kind of a biological switch that shifts that leads to that priority being an experienced reality. Is that part of it or
yes, I'm sure that, well, actually, I know yes, because the bonding hormones are occurring between infant and child. And I would say that oftentimes in situations like that, where the male or the husband has occupied a position of more provider caregiver, it's much more caregiver energy. So there's hopefully a lot of oxytocin that's being developed there, but I have also heard that in situations like that, oftentimes it can actually have an effect on a man's testosterone to be put in a situation like that. Um, so oftentimes men will find, oh, my T levels are really low when they're in this state as well. And but I would say I'm not an expert in the biology of it. What I would say is I'm more versed in the energetics of it.
Hmm.
So how I would have somebody address that sort of a disconnect is first I would take stock of where their energy is going generally. Because most of the time, the people in these sorts of situations, I find that, you know, their energy has shifted to focusing on everything else but their intimate life, right? So there's a period of time, oftentimes the woman's like, no, not tonight, no, not tonight, I'm busy and I'm doing this thing. And then the kids get into school and then it's all about their school. How much time are you actually focusing on your sexual connection with your partner? And what is preventing you from doing that? Is usually the first thing that I have both people look at. And most commonly, both of them say that they don't make it a priority. Um, Now, that being said, you can't just decide, okay, we're going to spend an hour a day on intimacy and then expect that that alone is going to change the chemistry, the sexual chemistry. In some cases,
yeah.
it may, but more commonly, it doesn't. And the reason why is that there is, by the time that this becomes a problem, the polarity in the relationship has also tanked. So, in addition to the time spent, and if you do spend that time, and I have a practice that I guide couples in, which is like a sensate focus practice where they just reacclimate themselves to each other's bodies without sex even being on the table. That can help create more oxytocin. It can help create a sense of, togetherness. But it doesn't necessarily right off the bat get their sex drive pumping. But it is still necessary. If you're not spending intentional focused time together, that would be step one. Step two, and so actually sometimes these can be reversed. Step
Hmm.
two is in addition to spending more time together, they also need to start spending more time apart. Um, which is funny, right? Like, so oftentimes the household responsibilities take all of the focus. They're collaborating on getting those done, which creates what is often called enmeshment, right? Usually the couple by that point is so enmeshed. My day looks like your day. We do the same thing all the time. I know exactly where you're going to be. You know exactly where I'm going to be. And it falls into a routine. Now, a little routine is not a problem, but too much routine kills polarity. So, in order to create that polarity, you need to create distance. And actually, I prefer to call it differentiation.
Hmm.
Um, and for somebody with young children, and for a couple with young children, that can really be a struggle um, to create, time and space apart. So, for one of my clients, I encouraged him, okay, so whenever you actually do get time alone, you feel so stressed out and you've been, taking care of the kids and doing your work and everything. When you get an hour or two alone, all you do is play video games or jerk off, you know, which doing that when you have time by yourself is not going to create this sort of differentiation and excitement that would lead to increased polarity, right? Um, Oftentimes people in these situations, when they finally get that time alone, they don't even know what to do with themselves. And it's often feeling like they have to steal it away. It's like, oh my God, finally I have this time. Okay, what am I going to do? Waste that time, right? Um, so in order for it to have a good effect, it needs to be time away that is, or time to yourself for your own pursuits, whether those be hobbies, hanging out with friends, going on trips, whatever it is. It needs to be consistent enough that it doesn't feel like, you know, you don't know when the next time that you're going to get it is, right? And that can be a difficult thing to create. Um, a lot of the difficulty actually comes from feelings of shame or guilt, right? A lot of parents feel that when they have their children deserve all of their time, energy, and attention, and they feel that they don't deserve or that it's irresponsible of them to take time to themselves.
Yeah, what I'm also hearing is there may be so there's
Mhm.
like two different angles or horns
Yeah,
of shame and guilt. There's like the shame and guilt from taking time away from the kids, but also shame and guilt because they've neglected their partner. At some point, I imagine they come up
yep.
out of water and like from treading water, and they remember, oh, that was that way, and now it's not. And how do I deal with
Mhm.
that? How do I honor him, or how does he honor me in the face of this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to go on a brief aside here. Part of this is due to have you ever heard of the term silo relationship?
No, please.
So a silo is like, a place where you store grain or, missiles or whatever. And it's an enclosed area. It's very difficult to get in or out of a silo.
Yeah.
And uh, Oftentimes couples hold their relationships and their families like silos. It's like they live in their house. They rarely leave it. When they do leave it, it's to go to the store or go to work. They don't have a sense of community. They may see their parents or their, nieces and nephews and, extended family, a couple times a year. And for the most part, it's just, wake up, be in the house, go to sleep, be in the house. And there's relatively little leaving that house or having a sense of an expanded village. They say that it takes a village to raise a child, but the way that the default mode of parenting works and default way of living works in the United States is very much not that.
Mm.
Now, this is not the case if you take a look at, for example, Mexican families. I've spent a good amount of time in Mexico, and I really love the culture there. There are some things that we can talk about that are some problems, but the way that they handle family actually can be a lot more adaptive than the way that we do it in the U.S. They're very much not silo relationships. They always have their primos over. They've got everybody's coming and going throughout the household. There's a lot of movement, a lot of energy flow,
Mm.
right? They go to the beach, park their cars on the beach, and bring out big boom boxes, and they all have a big old party, right? And if people need time alone, there's always a family member to watch the kids.
Yeah, what it strikes me is that there's this industrialization and commodification of the time and energy of the workers.
Hmm.
The post-industrial revolution here in America, especially like this culture of what is it, the Protestant overworking culture of like
Hmm.
my value comes from my work, and so people are overworked when they get home, which then leads them into this cycle of, well, I'm not going to reach out for any more. And then they
Yeah,
cover just enough to go back to work the next day or just enough on the weekend to go back to work on the Monday.
yeah.
And yeah, there's something malicious or nefarious, even if unintended, though maybe from
Oh,
your facial expression about,
absolutely.
okay.
So that's one thing I'd say to somebody who finds himself in this situation. The blame is not 100% on you. There's a certain sense to which it's not your fault. Um, but once you recognize the problem, then you can start to do something about it instead of saying like, "Oh, I should do better. I just should be doing something that I'm not." That you've fallen into a trap.
So if I may extrapolate forward
Mhm.
from what you've shared, like uh clearing away the guilt and the shame, allowing space inside oneself to focus on this again,
Mhm.
and choosing to set aside or create time with one's partner to focus on it after
Mhm.
differentiation has set in or been practiced.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then if the spark just isn't there, they would hire a depth sexuality coach, right? I mean,
Right. Maybe. So there's a few things that could be going on. And now for some people, the solution that I've outlined here of, have creating that focused time with your partner, and then also building differentiation into your life, sometimes for some people that's enough. But there can be other causes as well. And the most common cause that I've seen of sexual disconnection in relationships outside of just structural
uh-huh.
issues with time and children is trauma.
Huh.
And sometimes these things can coexist. So
Hmm.
I've I've encountered some clients where the female or the male, but usually it's the female, recognizes at a certain point that she has a lot of squick or ick surrounding sex and just no longer feels that she wants it anymore, right? It doesn't bring her that much pleasure. She has a certain amount of bodily shame and or um, insecurity that guides a lot of her behavior. And it feels like broaching the subject of sexuality brings up so much for her that she'd just rather not. And oftentimes that's something that occurs in a relationship once the honeymoon phase is over, right? So the honeymoon phase is over. All of a sudden, they start seeing their partners as they really are. Really are. They don't have the cocktail of chemicals keeping the going, and people's trauma comes up. Um, Oftentimes, especially if people are working and have children, it can feel daunting to even broach the subject of, okay, I don't actually want sex, and I recognize that a lot of this is me. My partner wants it a lot of the time. I can there there's probably a part of me that wants to blame them for not approaching me in a way that I would like. But I recognize at a certain point that I need to take responsibility for my own turn on and my own desire. So if the problem is trauma, then the important next step is actually uh, doing that trauma healing,
Hmm.
which I will say, how do I, if somebody asks, okay, so this describes my partner. My partner doesn't want sex. I'm fucking out of my gourd, frustrated. How do I determine what the cause of this is? And what I would say is if you or your partner uh, do not have the capacity to even find or engage with your own turn on. And you're kind of putting all of that responsibility on your partner to approach you in the right way in order to feel turned on and alive. That's trauma. Um,
Hmm.
it is each of our responsibilities to be able to access our own turn on, our own desire, and our own aliveness. And if you or your partner does not have access to that, then that's likely to be something that is personal, individual work rather than something that you're necessarily going to get all of the way through in relational work, if that makes sense.
It does. Like there's uh there's an accumulation internally of stuff that only now is coming to the surface that is
Mhm.
now putting a block in the way for the experience of intimacy. And they're on the tail end of that limerence chemical release period. So um
Yeah.
it,
Well, the difficult part about it, and why a lot of times the woman will say, like, for example, my partner doesn't touch me in a way that I like. There could be two things to that, and sometimes they're both happening at the same time. Sometimes the man just doesn't know how to touch a woman, but more commonly that's concurrent with the woman uh, not being in a space where she's really able to um, connect with him and really instruct him and guide him to touch her in a way that increases her pleasure, right? She's already in a state of feeling pleasure in her body, and then he can come in and engage with that pleasure and help to amplify it. But when that pleasure she doesn't have access to on her own, then it's basically an unwinnable game. Try to get him to touch her in a way that will provide pleasure and will just create disappointment after disappointment after disappointment.
If she is not in direct access for herself,
Yes.
pleasure especially is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, the worst feedback loop that I've ever seen, and I see this actually pretty regularly, is the woman will be like, "Well, you need to touch me in a way that I like." And he's like, "Okay, babe, I'm here. I'm showing up. Let me try it." And he will start trying to touch her in a way that she likes, and nothing is good enough, right? Nothing is good enough, or she has to fake it, or something or other, and encounters, therefore the time between them becomes more and more and more until all of a sudden, they're having sex 3 times a year and she's doing it out of pity,
Hmm.
right? And that's a horrible feedback loop because then the man is like, there's something wrong with me. And the woman's like, oh no, there's something wrong with me. And they both feel so much. It's like, I don't even want to touch this. Like this feels intractable.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've telescoped out from the structural
Mhm.
constraints
Yeah.
to like the more trauma driven that probably a lot of people are dealing with.
Hmm.
I'd say probably most people are walking around with unhealed trauma. And this,
I'd say everybody.
okay, everybody. And then this is
Yeah.
just a particular flavor that can show up for some
Yeah.
people. Now, the other side of it, and the side that, interestingly enough, was the original intention and target for this was and the rest of it is great because those are edge cases compared to this part of the bell curve
Okay.
in my mind.
Yeah.
And it's great to be able to resolve and distinguish and filter for what you're actually able to handle if you're conveying
Hmm.
a skill set. So I've started targeting in my marketing entrepreneurial men who want to reignite intimacy in their partnerships. And my
Hmm.
speculation, you can confirm this or not, but based on my somewhat limited experience of serving those people so far, is that there's an emotional and sort of sexual hygiene thing. And emotional hygiene is like shit accumulates between them that they don't know how to handle just in the course of being in life. And then
Hmm.
sexually, for example, they're not in touch with their own desire, their own pleasure, and
Hmm.
they're demanding their partner to give them that, then it's a catch 22. The partner can't give
Yeah.
them something they're not already in contact with. But could you speak to that variety? Like, is that more common
Yeah.
than the other two, or
So what it sounds like, and let me just see
sure?
if I get your question right. What you're referring to is you've got an entrepreneurial male, and he's in a relationship, and he doesn't have access to his own sense of pleasure or desire, and is expecting his partner to bring that out in him. Is that correct?
To some degree. So that's one angle on it. Another angle is
Hmm.
perhaps he's been sharing that intimacy with her, like he had a give and take, a
Hmm.
reciprocal energetic exchange that was going on for a time, and something he did, said, or didn't do led to a block or a like I almost use the word occulting, like an occult bleed. It's
Yeah,
because of
I
who
like
I'm
that.
talking to, but it's like a waxy buildup of stuff that prevents people from engaging anymore because of like resentment or frustration or
Yeah, now that is a problem that sounds relational. So that's a really good question. So let's take, for example, I, I'm gonna just take a case. Say it's like some form of trust breach or infidelity. Say something like that.
okay.
Maybe uh, let's say, for example, at one point, like he flirted with a colleague, and she's just like doesn't trust him or something like that. And he's like, wow, okay, so there's this buildup of resentment. How do I deal with that? Um, is that an okay thing for me to speak to?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay. So it's important to recognize that when you have resentment in a relationship, it's not going to just go away. Um,
Mm,
And it can bubble under the surface, but until the cause of that resentment is addressed to everybody's satisfaction, the quality of the relationship will just continue to deteriorate.
mm,
So it's important to understand that and take it seriously. So if you take it seriously, you're going to understand that you need to understand what the other person needs in order to uh, feel that resentment, that they don't need to hold on to it any longer. Now, keep in mind, you can't force somebody to let go of a resentment, but usually there's something that the woman needs to feel from the man in order to feel that she can release that resentment. Because the resentment, in some ways, is like, and the subsequent withdrawal and distancing is self-protection.
mm,
So she doesn't feel totally safe in the relationship for one reason or another. Usually, that reason is that she feels that the man is not hearing her and is not emotionally available in the ways that she feels that she needs.
mm.
So, in order to address that, I would recommend that somebody who has that sort of buildup go and start regularly seeing a couples therapist. Now, this is ironic because, I'm a coach and I am a sexuality coach, and I can support with this somewhat, but ultimately, what somebody needs uh, is emotional attunement and connection, which I would say a therapist is well suited to help that person create with their partner.
Mm.
Um, and you're not going to be able to just blast through it in a weekend workshop or something like that when you're dealing with resentment or infidelity or something like that. It takes focused commitment over a long period of time. And yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Mm. So that,
The problem in that case is not directly sexual.
it's brilliant. I mean, it outlines a solution, which is like confront what's in the space internally and then externally, and
Mhm.
have a space provided for you where you can be emotionally attuned to where that can take place.
Yeah, it really helps to have somebody who's a cheerleader for your relationship,
Mm,
right? It really helps to have a third party where they have a connection with the both of you where you're not trying to weaponize the therapist against each other, right? But you're actually going there and they are helping you have the conversations that you may not have the 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 thought to even have, and to bring out the stuff that's under the surface. It really helps to vocalize resentments when there's another person there, so that you don't go into trigger or feel attacked or engage with your defense mechanisms or strategies, which hopefully then translates out into how you engage with your partner outside of that container.
And those couples therapists, are they dealing with each person generally, individually as well as collectively in a group meeting?
Well, I would say that different therapists work differently.
Yeah.
When I'm doing a more therapeutic container with a couple, which I do, I'm not a therapist, but I will do couples coaching occasionally. When I do that, how I do it is I meet with the woman, I meet with the man, and then I have a joint call with the both of them. Now, my that allows me to uh, get what's going on for each individual, and then to see how what I learn, how they actually speak to each other about it, and then offer them space to reframe the way that they speak to each other and to understand each other more deeply. So that's the way that I approach it. Actually, my very favorite way is to work with a female, basically wing woman, right? Where the female takes the woman, I take the man, and then we do a joint call with all four of us. I find that's very effective.
That's brilliant. It's
Mm,
we like those who are similar to us. We trust them more, just intrinsically at the
mhm.
psychological level. Um,
Yeah.
I guess the only two pieces we haven't covered in this realm or this range is like the the mismatched desire conversation. Like
Now that one,
when for no reason other than preference, one person's desire is higher or lower than the other, and how to meet each other in that without becoming a pushy for something that maybe they don't want to give.
now that one, that's a totally different conversation and a very interesting one because it manifests in a whole lot of different ways. Sometimes the I would say on average, when women do not have trauma or mistrust or resentment in the way, a woman's sexual desire is on average much higher than a man's. But the way that you will often see it play out, like when people come to you for therapy or coaching, is oftentimes the man wants it and the woman doesn't.
Hmm.
But when I see that happening, what I recognize immediately is that the woman's just not in her desire. Because if she were in her desire, she'd be blowing him out of the water with the amount of sex that she would be, up for.
Hmm.
Um, so when you have a situation like that, and we're assuming it's not trauma, and that the two people just have a dispositional difference, like say the woman wants it twice a day and the man wants it once a week. Uh, that becomes a place where where the person who has the higher sex drive. Well, first of all, it's important to note that the person with the power in that situation is the one who wants it less, right?
Hmm.
Because then, like, whenever they say no, the other person has to go like, oh, and nurse their wounds, right? And then the person who has the higher sex drive may just stop asking,
Hmm.
may just stop even mentioning it, and then shut down, and or look for validation elsewhere,
Yep.
right? But this is where self-sourcing becomes incredibly important for each person. And I would take a dual-pronged approach. The first would be taking the person who has the lower sex drive and doing a real investigation. For example, are there any times in your life where you did have a higher sex drive?
Hmm.
What are the reasons for your sex drive? And is there a way that you can create conditions in your life where you feel sexier more frequently?
Hmm.
Right? Not even necessarily where I want to fuck my partner more frequently, because that's a byproduct of just the conditions of their life. So oftentimes, poor self-care can lead to lower sex drive. Lack of testosterone can lead to a low sex drive. Feeling overworked, which is the most common one, can lead to a low sex drive. Having children constantly, tugging on your arm can lead to a low sex drive. Enmeshment, and this is the most common thing, probably, is enmeshment can lead to a low sex drive. So I would do an investigation to find if any of those are a factor and then address them. And then for the person with the lower sex or with the higher sex drive, I would investigate, well, when you don't get what you want, how do you respond?
Hmm.
And really help them learn how to self-source. Usually, creating a self-pleasure practice is very helpful so that they can, experience energetic flow and even orgasm in their own body, with their partner not needing to be there.
Hmm.
Um, Usually, taking those things together, if we address the thing with the person with the higher sex drive and the lower sex drive, usually they can find a workable environment between them. However, sometimes that is simply not the case. And when that is not the case, when there's two potentials. One is their sex drive is just so incompatible that no matter what they do, there's not going to be getting through it. And that's rare, but it does happen. And in those cases, you want to say, all right, so it's clear that your needs are not going to be met in the way that you would like them to in this relationship. Um, you therefore have an option. Do you change the structure of the relationship and entertain, like, either going to see sex workers if that's something that you even feel available for, or would you consider opening the relationship to get those needs met? Or do you feel that it would be better to transition the relationship, right? Those are people's options in those cases.
Hmm.
Um, but then the other thing, and this is something that I've encountered a couple times, is one person, usually the person with the lower sex drive, doesn't actually want to be in the relationship. Not really.
Hmm.
And they're doing it for reasons that are a little more pragmatic or shadowy, right? It's like, because I have so much inertia in this relationship, it's my life. I don't know anything else. Um,
For the
I'm
kids.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, for the kids, right? We're going to stay together for the kids. We're going to stay together for the house. We're going to stay together so I know I can put food on the table. We're going to stay together for all these reasons, but like I don't have the passion for my partner that I would need to feel good having sex with them regularly. I don't necessarily want to admit that because admitting it would be so painful for my partner. So I'm just going to blame it on being overworked or this or that or the other thing, and just keep breadcrumbing them along the way so they stay with me because the possibility of breaking up and having that impact on the kids is just too unthinkable. And in those cases, my tactic is I'll start with all the other stuff, right? I'll start with okay, let's help you get self-source. And I'll start with the other person, okay, let's help you just feel your own sexiness, right? But then somewhere along the way, like I notice, I'm like, okay, like you don't really even want this relationship, do you? And then my goal is to help compassionately, and this is I don't bring this up with the couple together. I bring it up with the individual, and I'll just be like, look, I think you need to do a little bit of soul searching here. Uh, why are you in this relationship, or do you really want it? Um, and it usually takes people a while to come to the answer for that. And it's not an answer I can give them. But having someone reflect to them that maybe they actually don't want the relationship is a powerful thing. And sometimes that can lead them to a crisis where they're like, oh shit, I actually have been behaving like I don't want the relationship. And then it allows them to come to a place where they choose it and they're like, fine, fuck it, yes, yes, I'm in. And sometimes they're like, you're right, Michael. I fucking don't. It's not fair to my partner to keep doing this to them. I'm going to investigate, where my life might be taking me.
So much. So much wisdom. You've covered every edge case. You're a dynamo genius who presents as a tempo genius. Like, I'm going to see the thing from all the angles at all the times with all the specificity and subtlety. It's awesome.
Yep.
Um,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, it's always a pleasure to engage with you. So that I've got two more major questions.
Yeah, go for it.
One is directly related. It's this, and then we've got a bonus question if we have time. But are there marriages or relationships where sex stays great over time? Like I'm talking 10, 15 years in. I've got an example. One of my best friends is internationally renowned tantra teacher, and he used to say at the beginning of every retreat, he's like, "Oh yeah, you'd think our sex would get boring, and but actually it got better every month as we deepened." He's now
Yeah,
divorced from that partner.
yeah, yeah. No surprise there. So the short answer is no. But the long answer, the long answer, the long answer is that if you take the relationship as a unity and you say like overall does the sex remain good? It would be yes, but it would be no because there's always going to be dips. There's always going to be
Okay.
times where it's not. Um, and that's the important thing to remember. A lot of couples feel shame when their sex drive or their sex becomes bad. So there's one couple that I know. They used to say, and I really like this. I've had the best sex of my life with this person, and I've had the worst sex of my life with this person. And I think that is absolutely normal in long-term relationships. And it's important to be able to hold those times when maybe you're not seeing eye to eye, or your desires are totally separate, or even you're having a crisis of faith, right? So in a marriage or in a long-term committed relationship, the trick is the trick to longevity in those sorts of relationships is you don't both give up on the relationship at the same time, right?
Logically, that makes so much sense. Yes.
I would say that there are practices that you can have as a couple that will help maintain more often than not good sexual intimacy. And I think the primary practice in that is honesty and vulnerable revealing and clearing of withholds. So the more that you're able to be authentic with your partner in real time about where you're at, the greater likelihood that there's going to be less, there's not going to be quite so much resentment that builds up over time, which leads to the possibility for connected sex. Um, and that practice of radical honesty with each other over time is the thing that provides the fertile soil for a spicy sexual connection to continue to flourish. Um, Now, you're always going to fuck up. There's no couple that doesn't have their dark night or dark nights of the soul.
Huh.
But provided you're always able to come back together and choose each other, you can move through those.
I'm haunted by this notion though that people might give up at the same time. I mean, there's no way to redeem that unless you're like someone from the outside saying, "Hey, wait, no, don't give up. There's hope. This is worthwhile."
Well, actually, so sometimes it can be really helpful to both give up at the same time.
Huh.
And I'll tell you why.
The way
So
out is
it doesn't.
through, as Trent Reznor would say, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes couples reach this point in their relationship where they become so enmeshed and their desire just drops off a cliff, and they're trying to take care of the kids or whatnot, and uh, they have just been trying to make it work for so long, but they hate their lives,
Hmm.
right? And they need to come, each of them individually needs to come into a place where they really enjoy their lives. And a lot of times people think, well, the problem is my partner. I just don't like my partner. But sometimes that's actually not true. Sometimes it's just because neither of you really likes your life together. And so sometimes in those cases, differentiating and splitting up, maybe even living in separate houses, allows you to create, a life that you really like. That then you can connect with your partner, and you're like, you know what, actually, like there is something here that can work. It's just not in the, silo relationship that we'd created together. Like we need something else. And provided that you can not immediately find a new partner and think that the solution is to go dating, and you recognize, well, maybe I just need to find my own power. And if you can hold that and hold the relationship, that can be really helpful. So the question is, what are you giving up on? Are you giving up entirely on the other person, or are you giving up on the unwinnable game that you guys have created together that you're both trying to play and failing at?
Have you ever considered or launched, and perhaps you have, and I'm just unaware of it, like a relationships course?
Um, yes, so I created a non-monogamy course, which I'm not running anymore. Um, but I have considered creating that. Um, and I'm sure that I will have one at some point. But I think that my focus these days has been mostly on men. And the only time when I work with couples is in a one-to-one format, because I don't have the energy to be holding both a focused curriculum for men and a focused curriculum for couples. Like I feel that I need to choose one primarily for my outward expression.
Well, I mean, if
So
you ever,
one day,
yeah, if you ever launch Depth Relationality for Men, not the best title, but I think it'd be fun.
thanks.
Just let me know. Yeah, we
And
can.
I mean, you know what? Like one of the things about relationships is it's funny. I do have a lot of awareness around relationships, but I think that there's this sense that because I am not currently in the sort of, picture perfect partnership that everyone is like, oh, I need that in order to sign up for their course. There's a feeling of like, am I really qualified to do this?
Yeah.
And I think I have my own sense of like I need to have a particular thing in order to run it. I know I realize that's bullshit, but it's something that's important to some people. So I'm like, I'll work with people one to one, but like I don't want to have to do all the marketing
Yeah.
when people are like, well, tell me about your relationship. I'm like, okay, I can definitely do that. But it's
I'll give you
you're
all the
you're not
details.
necessarily gonna like the answer.
It's yeah, I mean just because I love you, and you're an awesome human and have been a great friend for so many years and all this. I'll say this: the Saints, when they went to the Super Bowl, their coach did not have to currently be a good football player or
Yeah,
effective
that's
on the
true.
field. Yeah, and that's, I mean, there's many angles of that, but which
What
you
I would
guys working
say,
for you.
this is what I would have to say for myself. The level of meeting myself that I've had to do to have all of the relationships that I've had is absolutely intense. I have encountered so many different flavors and textures of dysfunction and conflict that I know them all very intimately, and I have been through the fire many, many times. Um, Now, that makes me uniquely qualified to be able to speak to a lot of conflicts that couples have, because I've done those. I've taken the time to come back into myself and reflect and be like, okay,
Hmm.
so this is what I learned, and then apply that to my personal coaching practice. And I find that that is the thing that is most valuable. A lot of times, people who are in these like long-term relationships and become coaches, they're not actually the most qualified to help other people create that because all they know is their one relationship, which relationships are so personal and so individual that it helps to have somebody who has like a depth and breadth of perspective, and who has lived through a variety of different things. Now, I'm 41. I have 41 years of experience, and it's possible that somebody who's older than me would have more, but I would say that I've definitely thrown myself in there again and again and again.
Let's do this again and just explore the different, I mean, if you want,
Yeah,
harvest the different flavors of dysfunction and anticipation of conflicts in relationship because the best way to learn is through failure. The key is it doesn't have to be theirs. The people who are
yeah,
listening,
that's
it
true.
could be yours. So
Yeah.
we don't create a course, but we do another conversation if you want.
I'm up for it. I would be happy to go through all the different flavors of dysfunction that I've encountered. I've encountered it with non-monogamy as well as monogamy, and I've been all over the map in terms of attachment styles, and yeah, it's okay. Happy to do it.
Mapping the landscape of dysfunction, we could call it that. That'd be fun.
Yeah, actually, I would be excited for that conversation.
We could call it all the best ways to fuck up your relationship and how not to, in parentheses.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, that's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
I could give a lot of really amazing personal examples of how I've fucked up relationships, and that would be a lot of fun to share.
Well, brilliant. I'll send you the link again. We'll make it happen.
All
My
right.
last question, and this factors in to this is kind of a bonus question. It's a very personal question. And I hope it does not come off as ungrateful because the experience I had in depth sexuality was so profound that my standards for sexual experience have been raised, like in a way that I only just recently got present to. Like I haven't had sex since my last breakup, like physical sex for like a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had so
Yep.
many opportunities, to be perfectly honest, where I could have gone for
Wow.
Yeah, and I look back and all generally where my consciousness would go is this space of shit, man, I haven't had sex in such a long time. Fuck God. Da da da, what why am I not? Well, like there's something wrong with. And then I wake up to and I remember, oh no, no, actually, I've had these opportunities. I've just chosen not to. We do the wrong
Hmm.
thing so long that the right thing it feels wrong. And yet, after 3 times of self-pleasure, like focusing on self-sourcing for more or less every week in the program, and then going through this adventure in dating, I've arrived on location in a space of like, I could go do self-pleasure, but self-sourcing is boring. Like, and biologically, like the fact that we're able to think, I think is a
Hmm.
derivative feature of the fact that we're able to produce and understand speech. And in the
Hmm.
same way, if you look at the penis and the vagina, it seems like there's a certain function evolutionarily that we're able to play. And the fact that we're able to
Yeah.
self-pleasure seems derivative on the fact that, we're able to reproduce and have pleasure. I think it's the guy in it's not Stealing Fire, it's Recapture the Rapture, Rethinking Death, Sex,
Okay.
and God. He talks about how fun a trick it is that evolution plays on us to like to pursue this pleasurable thing, and then it ends up being about reproduction. So like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, just for fun, what would you say to someone like me who's now valorizing? Like I'm bored with personal like self-sourcing. I'd rather have sex with somebody who's not necessarily my wife, but who I get to experiment with. And because I was waiting on my
Hmm.
wife for some period of time there too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just open up. And I think there are probably people who hit that ceiling inside of the self-sourcing, answering to the problems that we were already talking about, was where this becomes relevant and not shameless self request for
Yeah.
coach. Like it's like where there and it also seems to play into the answer of the question of do we restructure or renege or like transition the relationship? Because that maybe they're willing to put up with, all right, she's not going to give me any of what I need, but I've self-sourced, so I'm more full more of the time. And there's a certain
Hmm.
variety or flavor of sex that is interpersonal, that tastes different,
Yeah.
feels better
Absolutely.
for some people.
Hmm.
So, yeah, what would you say to all that?
So let me see if I can tease out what the question is. So the question is that there's a man who's in a relationship that he's not necessarily ready to let go of. He has been self-sourcing and he has a solo pleasure practice, but he wants to have a flavor of intimacy or sexuality that is not seemingly available to him in his marriage or relationship. Is that the question?
Yeah, with the spin-off of my personal situation where it's like, and I'm gonna pursue interpersonal sex regardless. I've
Yeah.
reached a breaking point in my own celibate period. I'm just
Yeah.
like, all right, you know what? Fine. Um, but I think the way to make it most relevant is like when is the cap on self-pleasure? Because there does seem to be one, and how to handle
Yeah.
that ceiling.
Well, I would say that as provided it's not coming from compulsion, that there's a period of time where you're just gonna know. You're like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready. And when you decide you're ready, the universe usually responds by giving you the opportunities that you need. So what I would say is, life is too short for bad sex. Um, allow yourself to uh, to to open up to that potential, and when it presents itself to you, don't fucking block it. I mean, it's and but keep in mind also that you're gonna want to feel into where is my desire for the sexual encounter coming from? Is it just pure fuck energy, or is there like heart to it as well? Because I think that both are important. If you just go out because you're horny to get laid, you can ignore some really important interpersonal dynamics that could end up being more of a drain in the long run. So make sure that your agreements and your intentions are clear with whomever you decide to engage with.
Lovely. Perfect
Yeah.
confirmation, reinforcement, and clear direction.
Hmm.
I've been rereading my own book, incidentally, to be responsible
Oh,
and
great.
of those old school, like emotional, sexual dynamic blurring. And
Hmm.
Yeah, so this has been great. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the gift of your presence, your expertise. Um, where do people find you, and what are you launching these days or sharing that people can
Yeah.
relate to?
So you can find me on Facebook. I'm Michael Author. You can also go to WTFDYW.com, which is what the fuck do you want? .com. And so I have like a cyclical sort of offerings in my sphere. So what I'm doing right now is in a couple weeks I'm going to be starting a new phase of my men's program called the Man You Are Becoming, which helps you clarify the man that you are choosing to live into through a set of visualization practices, accountability, those sorts of things. And then in the winter time, I usually do the dreaming, like dreaming work. So I call it dreaming self-initiation. So that's winter. And then in the spring, I do depth sexuality. So that is that those are kind of the three upcoming things I'm going to be doing.
Beautiful.
And if you're interested in any of those, just reach out, send me a message.
Well, thank you for helping people from your angle, from your life,
Mhm.
and your expertise in the ways that you do, and helping our people to make love easy. And I'll
Yes.
end with this. I think it's really criminal if you don't title the dreaming portion that you teach in winter, or I think you should title it Winter is Coming.
That's funny. Yeah, that's a great title for a sexuality course in the winter. I will consider
Oh,
that.
yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. But then you need a model, like a stripper whose name
Yeah.
is Winter. Anyway, okay.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, all right,
All
y'all.
right, brother.
Thank you for listening and have the most beautiful day, y'all. Please feel free to comment, share, subscribe, all the things.